welcome to our first ever LinkedIn live session on how to attract and retain the best software engineering talent. As a quick introduction, my name is Josh Kerslake, and I'm the Associate Director of our technology business here at Michael Page in Boston. And I've been working in the tech recruitment sector for just over 9 years now.
Yes, and I am Kendall Barnett. I am the manager of the software and IT recruitment team here at Michael Page. Been working in recruitment for just about 6 years now, 5 of which have been specialized here in software and IT.
So as a quick introduction, so we work for Michael Page, which is part of Page Group. We are an insights-driven international leader in specialist recruitment, providing our customers with talent solutions across all seniority levels. And Kendall and I work for our technology brand. We oversee a team of focused technology recruiters, helping clients throughout the Northeast find the best software engineering talent, and of course, help candidates find their dream jobs. So we thought it would be beneficial for us to share our experience of working with hundreds of candidates and clients and give a little bit of advice on how to attract and most importantly retain the best candidates in one of the most competitive hiring markets that we've both ever seen. So let's jump right into the first slide, where Kendall will kick things off with some of the most in-demand skill sets for software engineering roles in Boston and North America. And by the way, if you do have any questions throughout the session, please drop them in the comment section and we will do our best to answer them at the end. Over to Kendall.
Thanks, Josh. So yes, as Josh mentioned, and as you can see on the screen, I've listed out a number of different areas that are in the highest demand right now across North America. That ranges from back-end development, front-end development. You can also put in full stack within that group. Mobile development, DevOps engineering, and of course, data engineering and data science. In the current market, just based here in Boston, there are actually over 10,000 jobs posted at the moment. I broke these down, and I think what's most common about these roles is that all of the clients are targeting more modern technologies, modern programming languages, right? So think things like Python, Scala, Golang, Java on the back end. For front end, we're seeing most commonly requested JavaScript languages, so maybe Vue or React, as well as Angular and TypeScript. Mobile engineering, there's definitely a high demand here, especially within the past 6 years. There's been a large push across multiple companies. This will be things like React Native, Swift, Java RX, depending on whether you're targeting iOS or Android, as well as DevOps engineering. Having experience in migrating to the cloud or from one cloud to the other, and these tend to be focused in the public cloud spaces, right? So think things like GCP, AWS, Azure. Those are going to be the key areas that we find a lot of our clients and a lot of the jobs posted right now are commonly asked for and requested, as well as data engineering and data science. Think Python, R, Snowflake, Scala, Spark, those sort of technologies are in high demand. I think most importantly, what I wanted to talk about is, having an extensive database. So having a way to store your candidates and look back on them, right? Maybe you interviewed somebody 2 years ago, and now you're hoping to, fill a similar role now. That candidate might have been too junior then, but maybe they now have the skill set that you're looking for. So something we do here at Page is we have a vast network of contact information and resumes, and we're able to go back through and match those candidates with roles, even if, maybe 2-3 years prior, they weren't a good fit. We also utilize more than just job boards and job postings. I think 72% of our placements are actually passive candidates. And when I say passive, I'm referring to candidates who aren't actively looking on the market, right? They're not going to be going out and applying directly through your job boards. They're not going to be actively sending their resume into companies' career pages, right? So we want to make sure that you're getting the best candidate possible, and you want to make sure that you're finding the best candidate for the role, right? And not just settling for those who are directly applying to you. So I recommend talent recruiters or HR professionals in the space. If you're working within the talent area, consider leveraging things like LinkedIn Recruiter or Zoom Info to gather contact information, or feel free to give us a call and we can absolutely tell you a little bit about some of the other systems our other clients leverage to be able to track their candidates and make sure that they have them for years to come.
Awesome. So just a quick kind of update of the North American job market. So obviously the market has been a little volatile in the last few months with some economic uncertainty and a number of companies deciding to either freeze hiring or even in extreme and unfortunate cases lay off their employees. I think the first thing to note here is that yes, there have been layoffs in large numbers and there's no escaping that, but I don't think all layoffs are software engineers and specifically technology specialists. Of course, some have been. But the way it has been reported as tech layoffs gives the impression that every technology team is being downsized, when in reality, a lot of the layoffs are in different areas of each business. They just happen to be at large technology companies. So I still think the demand for talent is extremely high. I still think there's a great access to high caliber talent, but I think this means that candidates are becoming more and more selective when making the leap to join a new business, as they naturally want to be confident that whatever company they do join, it has the stability that they need to feel secure in the new role. I think a huge push now from a lot of companies is getting people back into the office, or at least getting people in a hybrid setup. Especially when the pandemic hit, we switched to a completely remote culture. I know Kendall and I had never worked remotely before, and then we were able to work remotely, so it even changed on our side. But I think it's very important now to recognize that most roles can be done with a hybrid setup, and most roles in our space can be done in a remote setup. So I think when you're thinking about hiring, and we'll touch on it later, if you want the best people, I think it's best to give them some flexibility, because I personally think the days of 5 days on site are a little bit outdated. Finally, there's definitely still a large investment in technology. We're obviously covering the Boston market, so we're slightly biased towards Boston, but Boston's a thriving technology hub, one of the best, the most recognized startup ecosystems in the US. I think there was over 4,000 startups in the Boston area last time we checked. And naturally, Boston has a huge investment in technology from both Harvard and MIT grads coming into the market. So I think overall market update, and just recently we have seen a definite pickup, but it's been a little volatile, but I definitely think the demand for talent is still there, and the technology market is definitely still booming.
So I want to talk about identifying a star software engineering candidate. I call these candidates purple squirrels, right? They essentially don't exist, right? Everyone has a laundry list of things that they want out of a candidate. And I always tell my clients when we get on the phone and we've got a list of 10 or so items to pick, 6, 7 that are most important to them, right? What are the core items that you feel like maybe your team or your organization or that this position needs to bring to the table? And we typically go from there. So I broke it down into 2 areas, right? Technical expertise versus soft skills. Within technical expertise, these are like the things that you can spot on a resume, right? Or that and then of course the soft skills are a little bit more intangible. So think things like quality of code writing. This is tough. I think if you're in HR, talent acquisition, and you're sitting there and you're like, well, I'm not technical. How am I going to be able to vet this out on the front end? And I think it can be frustrating for hiring managers when they interview 4, 5, 6 people who claim to be, a Java developer, but maybe they can't do the general basics that hiring manager would expect of them. And what I always advise my clients is to get me a list of 5 to 6 targeted questions that are maybe more technical than I would ask on the phone, right? Tell me about a time that you developed a mobile React Native mobile application. Tell me the difference between X software application and Y software application. How do you build in, X in an Oracle database, right? And bear with me on those questions, examples. But my point is I wouldn't generally ask that on the phone, right? I would ask more trying to get an understanding of who they are, what they've done, a general background. And I think those questions can add a lot and save a lot of time, because if your candidates can't answer basic technical questions around the languages or frameworks or whatever it might be that they're working in, they likely are not going to perform well in the technical challenge in step 2 or 3 of the interview process. And we just saved a lot of people some time on the front end. So a little bit more work for us in talent acquisition, agency side, and HR, but can be very beneficial. Track record of project ownership. This is very becoming more and more commonly requested, especially within the startup space, or maybe like smaller growing companies, and being able to own those projects end to end. So I just ask for specific examples ahead of time. Even if it's a personal project and they're able to share their GitHub with you, and you can take a tour of the applications themselves, or maybe they actually have career experience and maybe they didn't list that accurately on their resume. Making sure that we're getting that understanding ahead of time can be huge. And of course, relevant industry experience. I get this request a lot from pharmaceuticals, biotech, even like fintech. And my advice to my clients is, why do we want that industry experience, right? Is it maybe, say you're in med device, right? Is it because they're working on a physical product? Okay, what about some other manufacturing companies? If you're in biotech and you're like, well, there's a lot of compliance, a lot of documentation. Okay, but what about banking or fintech? They also have those sort of things. And those candidates, a lot of times, maybe on paper, don't look as desirable, offhand. But if they're very interested in the industry and they have that background experience, they'll likely be able to shift a little bit easier than maybe somebody who's coming out of e-commerce, right? And has never done that sort of documentation side. So I think finding where you can be flexible in that can really open up the pool of candidates and be a little bit more beneficial throughout your interview process. Communication skills and interpersonal skills. This is huge. Everyone says this, right? Can they communicate? I recommend knowing what communication means to you. I always ask my clients that, right? So are they going to be talking with stakeholders? Are you referring to the company culture and how they communicate internally, right? What's your management style, and what sort of people do best under you? Understanding, right, more of just the general can they speak, I think can go a long way, because it's like, who are you speaking to and what are we really looking for in that soft skill? And wrapping things up, right? So post-interview follow-up, from a candidate perspective, I always recommend showing you're interested, right? I think, companies are interviewing you and you're interviewing them. And I think a lot of times you can walk out of that call and maybe you got a lot of information that you needed to digest. And I think it can go a long way just sending a brief thank you. Thank you for your time. Here's what I learned. Here's why I think I'm a good fit. And I've seen that propel candidates who maybe people were on the fence about to second, third, fourth rounds, because they showed that they were mutually as invested in this opportunity as the company was. Realistic compensation expectations. I think this goes for both parties. And I know Josh will dive into this a little bit more later on, so I won't touch on it. But, if you're a recruiter, I think educate the candidate on the market that you're seeing, on where you're seeing other candidates with similar backgrounds and skill sets coming from, right? People won't know, and I mean, of course, everyone's gonna shoot for to get the most out of it, and hopefully, land within the stars. And then reference checks. I know my office and Michael Page nationwide, after a first round interview, we always get references. I think shout out New York, they do it even before then. So references are huge. I have had so many instances where somebody's been on the fence about a candidate. We got a reference asking specific questions around maybe that area of concern, right? They don't have enough software architecture experience. Okay, what are some questions we could ask a previous employer about what they've done to see if maybe that just didn't come through in the interview, but they do in fact have that experience. And I think having somebody else who's of equal level and a manager speak to that can be great. And just lastly, as a candidate, preparedness to interview is very important. Clients, prepare them, right? Let them know whether it's video or phone call, who they'll be speaking with. Share information on your company, articles, press releases, anything you can to gauge their interest, and make sure that they have questions ahead of time, as well as are prepared to, dress the way, your company is, or your company is, and whether you're more business professional or business relaxed. And lastly, good tenure. I hear this a lot, and I'll see, or speak with recruiters and they're like, yeah, just good tenure. Is that years of experience or the project that they're working on, right? Clarifying these things to either the agencies that you're working on, or if you're a hiring manager, to the TA team internally you have working on it, can go a long way, because then they know, all right, I'm targeting somebody who's done X project and that has, minimum 8 years of experience, or maybe you need both, in which case at least they know that and are able to better qualify candidates. So I think that's it for me, Josh.
Awesome. Thanks, Kendall. So you've identified your candidates. So how do you attract them to get them on board, and most importantly, retain those candidates? So seems obvious, but I think especially in this current market, a strong base compensation is key. It shows that you're, confident in them, faithful in them, and it most importantly gives that candidate the security and the stability that they need. So I think it shows a lot of faith in the candidate from day one if you come in with a strong base. I think in the last few years, especially in a very hot market, it's been a lot more common for a low base, kind of high reward structure. And although, and I'll get to it, incentives are very important, I think, especially in this present moment, a strong base compensation to reflect someone's experience and really value them is extremely key. I touched on it before, hybrid working, flexibility. Again, it depends on the company that you are, it depends on the culture that you have. But I think understanding what a candidate wants and what you require from day one is key. We've had some situations where people have got to 2-3 rounds and a client has decided, yes, this is 5 days on site, when maybe initially it was advertised as 1, 2, 3 days. I think making this clear from day one is very important. But if you want the best people, you want to be flexible, you want to trust your employees, and they will prosper by able to work remotely. So bonuses and equity. So I think you need to incentivize the best people in order to increase retention. Kendall and I have seen anything from 10 to 30% annual bonuses, and obviously depending on the type of company, equity is a huge thing too. So just putting together the best possible package, but also, ask the candidate what they prefer. Some candidates might prefer a low base, high reward option. Some candidates might prefer a high base, low reward option, depending on the type of person they are. And I think that's something that you can definitely touch on in the interview process too. That goes with strong benefits as well, and a 401k. I think people younger in their career might not value this as much as people with a little bit more tenure. But again, we've seen placements slip through the cracks because a client isn't offering a specific type of healthcare coverage or doesn't have a 401k match. I think it's very important, at least annually, to review and compare your benefits to your competitors and make sure what you're offering is competitive, because things can come down to a matching 401k or a deductible on a healthcare plan. So I think that's very important as well. So cutting edge technologies. It sounds obvious, but the best people want to work with the latest and greatest technology. So keeping up to date with the market is key. You don't want your best people who are very happy thinking that they have to maybe leave your business in order to keep up with the industry. A lot of people have fantastic experience, but they've been with a company for 10, 15 years and maybe haven't, worked with AWS or worked with Azure or worked with the latest technology in whatever space they work in. And now they're unable to find a new position. They haven't been able to obtain that experience. So I think making sure you're up to date will help retain the best people, because the best people want to keep their skill set current. And then finally, just aligning with the company culture and mission. I think this is a very underrated part of hiring. This is something that you can discuss in the interview process, but most importantly, after you've hired someone. So, doing 30-day, 60-day, 90-day check-ins. And if you can specifically lay out how the candidate will impact your organization, but also tell them and show them how much of a value add that they have been, this will increase and help buy-in from day one and give a candidate a little bit more purpose in their role. A lot of candidates that we've spoken to have mentioned that once they're hired, they can feel a little bit lost in their first few months. And that's arguably the most important time to make an impression on your candidate, get buy-in from a candidate, and ensure a quick start, and most importantly, long-term happiness, because hiring is difficult. It takes time, and there's nothing worth going through all of that effort, order it, and then 2, 3, 4 months in, that candidate to move on. And just to quickly touch on, we do have a salary survey that gives a bit of an insight into Michael Page Technology as a business. We have hubs in New York, Chicago, here in Boston, on the West Coast as well. But more importantly for you as a business, it shows you average salaries across multiple different skill sets and different locations to give you a bit of an idea kind of what maybe you should be budgeting for a role if you're not quite sure. So there's a link here. And if you have any questions on that, then feel free to reach out to me too. So just on that, so I guess in terms of questions, I know we've got 2 of our most kind of commonly asked questions to answer. I think this one's for Kendall. So I've never used an agency before. What is the value add? It just seems so expensive.
Good question. I feel like I should like crack my knuckles and go into my sales pitch here. But on a serious note, I always ask my clients to define what financially capable means to them, right? So what are you currently spending money on for your advertising adverts, for maybe, employing a number of internal recruiters? And what's a return there, right? How many recs are being filled? How many recs are you hoping to have filled? And have you reconsidered, or considered reallocating some of that money? I think every company is different. I like to say that we are consultants, right? Not recruiters. I'm not here to necessarily sell every company on working with, my side of the agency, whether that be perm recruitment or temp, all the time. I think it's not a one size fits all. So understanding your need and if it makes sense, to work with an agency is huge. So a lot of times when people most commonly come to us and it makes sense to work together is, if a position's very urgent, maybe it's a backfill, somebody recently left and, your team is struggling and they're having to pick up the slack and work extra hours. In that instance, when you need immediate qualified delivery, it makes sense to work with agency, right? As well as, is your internal team specialized or capable enough to focus on maybe these higher level recs that within technology, software, or other spaces? Is this their bread and butter? And if not, and you've been lacking on seeing high quality candidates, then maybe you think of using a hybrid, right? It doesn't mean shut off the faucet for your internal or turn it on full blast for agency. A lot of times I start working with clients on just one specific role and we see, what traction we can get and then go and build from there, right? When there's delivery and then I think a bit of buy-in on both sides. As well as, is it high volume? If you have 25 software engineering recs and, 1-2 internal recruiters, in that instance, I think having a call with an agency and seeing, what they can offer and how they can provide a service could probably go a long way and be beneficial for your organization. And if none of those instances are for you, I still think worth the conversation. I know here at Michael Page, we offer things like MSP options, right? Where we allocate internal recruiters to work alongside your company and help you fill recs at higher volumes. We also have temp options. I recommend this for my clients who, maybe retention is an issue for them, or they've had 1 or 2 specific recs that, every 6 months somebody's leaving. You don't want to pay a flat fee and then potentially not, have the right candidate in the role and lose them 6 months later. We don't want that for you either. So maybe we do something like contract to hire so that you get to, feel them out and they can feel you out. I think just in regards to Michael Page, by and large, I guess this is a little bit of a sales pitch, but I'll do my best not to go too crazy. But I know for us, we're an international firm. We're also a national firm. We cover all of the biggest hubs across the world as far as cities go. So we're also specialized industry. So, while myself and Josh can tell you all about every software and IT position, right around the corner from me is Maddie Litchfield on sales and marketing, and she can tell you everything there is to know. So we don't pretend to be experts in areas that we're not, but we are a one-stop shop for everything you need. So I know that's huge for my clients. They don't have to have, one recruiter at Michael Page doing software and IT and another at some boutique firm, handling their finance. We have all those capabilities internally, and we're able to point you in the right direction to the person and team that's capable of doing so. And I think speaking to that, and I guess this is my last bit before I let you move on, Josh, is that, that allows us to have high delivery. When you're focused in these areas and focused in specific recs, I think our average last year, I'll use some stats for you, but our average delivery from taking a job brief, which means speaking with a client, getting an understanding of the role, was 24 to 48 hours. We were able to provide them a short list of candidates. 72% of the candidates that we placed last year were included in the first shortlist. So it means that not only are we understanding what you're asking us for, we're able to deliver it in a short amount of time. And the average days to offer from that short list of candidates, from the time we took that job brief to the time we offered the candidate and were able to get an accepted offer, was just 23 days. So I think speaking to the urgency, speaking to the delivery in a short amount of time, that's the benefit of working with an agency is they're specialized enough to do that. Specifically, Michael Page,
Awesome. Thanks, Kendall. Just a couple of questions from the chat. Simon asks if we have a UK or EU tech salary guide. I'm sure we do. I'll reach out to you after this with that directly. I just have a copy of our US salary guide, but I know that we have those globally as well. And another question that was a common question we asked before this was we like to do technical screens before ever speaking to a candidate to ensure we aren't wasting anyone's time. What are your thoughts? So, I mean, on this, I understand, wanting to make an interview process as streamlined and efficient as possible. And some clients think that a technical assessment will do that. And I think technical screens are a fantastic way for companies to ensure a candidate is a good fit. However, what I recommend is actually doing it maybe as a second step or a third step. The reason I recommend this is because just as you, and I think Kendall mentioned it, candidates are interviewing you as a company just as much you're interviewing them as a candidate. So if you ask a candidate to do a 30-minute, 1 hour, 2 hour technical test as a first step, candidates have got current jobs, they're very busy, and most candidates will want to at least have an initial conversation, honestly, to see if the job is worth pursuing from them from a technical or personal kind of perspective. So I think the interview process should be a two-way street. So I mean, doing a technical second or third allows there to get a bit more buy-in from a candidate and allow that candidate to be interested in doing it, and gets a bit more of a mutual buy-in from both sides. So that was one question. And then just another one from Simon regarding kind of EU relocation. I can reach out to you on that. We don't typically relocate candidates from the EU to our US clients, but we're honestly at the kind of demand of our clients. So if a client is able to do that, then we most definitely will. And then finally, another question in terms of how to get a job in a specific sector. I think, you can come to us. We work with multiple companies in different industries, and we can tell you kind of which companies we are working with. In Boston specifically, we work with a lot of biotech firms, life science firms. But I think if you're looking to get into a specific industry, seek agencies, apply to postings that you see online. I think just if you're passionate about working for a specific industry, really target that industry and make that clear when you speak to your recruiter, because we can speak to the finance clients that we have in the area, speak to the life science clients, and we can pitch your resume as someone who really wants to work in that field. So I think there's a link in the comment to kind of download our US salary guide and also our Canada salary guide. If you have any questions about kind of what we've said today, our contact details are here for Kendall and I, but this is the first one that we've done, so hopefully we did okay. The last time we did this, someone didn't press record, so we've gone one step further this time. So thanks everyone for your time, and hope to hear from some of you soon.